at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you get back up? Can you do the right thing when there's adversity? And can you keep pushing and keep pushing? And I found that as soon as you change that mindset from hold my chest, to my wife, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this?
I'm gonna die, right?
Yeah, to focus on the solution. It's going to be grinding out hard. But if you get through that, you are 10 times stronger and you persevere. And, there's not just been one instance of taking punches in the stomach or the face, so you learn over time. When I first got into lending, I took some properties back and I was very nice to somebody when I shouldn't have been. He was lying to me in my face for 2 years or for a year and a half. And it cost me $300,000 just learning that hard lesson like that.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Go ahead. So you're saying it's interesting what?
Yeah. So, it's interesting how your mindset changes over time. And I was talking to friends of mine that were older than me at the time when I first got started in real estate. And they were like, hey, I'm just ready to retire. I want to find passive stuff. I don't want to do all this active stuff anymore. And I'm looking at them like, you're crazy. What do you mean? You don't want to flip 1,000 houses? What's wrong with you? That would be dope, So,
isn't that what the pros do in real estate? Yeah. They flip 1,000 houses. That's how they get their creed, right? That's how you respect them, man.
Yeah. And you realize quick, after having kids now and really focusing on them and realizing what is actually important in life, you realize you're like, okay, yes, why did I sell any of those houses? I should have just held everything and I would be done completely. I'm like probably my biggest regret with real estate is why didn't I just hold all of it?
I am so excited because I have Matthew Owens here with me with OCG Properties. Let me read just a little bit about OCG Properties. Our mission, because this is what I care about. I care about what is the focus of the person or of the institution the person works with. And is it about serving? Is it about win-win? Is it about paying it forward? Is it about giving more? So listen to this. Our mission is to help our clients attain financial freedom. I love financial freedom, guys. Financial freedom through providing support, education, sound, positive cash flow real estate investment opportunities. An intelligent investment in real estate can give you tremendous returns on your money. So why doesn't everyone invest? That's a question I want to know. We're not probably going to talk about that in this show, but I want to know that too. The fact is there are many risks and barriers to entry into the world of real estate, but OCG Properties, we're highly experienced in real estate investors that can educate you on the entire process and make you sure you're acquiring high quality assets with all the due diligence done for you. Our goals are to make real estate investing easy for the average investor through our various investment programs that can be tailored to your needs. And I know you've done that, Matthew. We realize the world of real estate can be complex and intimidating. Our proven process and systems take away those barriers, so our investors become successful real estate investors. Matthew Owens, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Christina. I appreciate it.
I want you to explain a little bit. OCG Properties, this is your baby. You've been working on this for 20 years. How long have you been
A little over 15 now. So
a little over 15. Okay. I'm making you older than you are. Sorry if I'm pre-aging you.
It's fine with me.
Is the gray showing yet? Is it the years of real estate causing the gray to show up yet?
It's not, but it's going up here.
It's going up here. Okay. So it's the receding hairline. Yeah. That's the distinction, is the receding hairline. So OCG Properties started kind of small. And it's really grown to actually be quite big and complex. So walk us through it a little bit so people have a sense for your background.
Yeah, no problem at all. So, I started off as I'm a CPA and I needed something different. I was going, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was going, I cannot work and trade my time for money consistently for the rest of my life. And also I can't do taxes and, help people, the government steal the people's money, and things like that, of course. So I can
see your deep regard for the IRS. I'm hearing the deep, profound regard you have. Yes, go ahead.
Right. So I quit my CPA firm job and took a lot of education and things like that and just really started flipping right away. Got the right relationships, started, developing those even more and more and networking, night in and night out consistently for a couple of years at least to develop those relationships. And And I remember I saw you there in the beginning too. So, and really at the end of the day, I thought I was a genius all of a sudden because I was flipping houses. And then of course the market tanked in 2008. I quit in '06. And then I got, punched in the face and pretty much lost everything. And you realize very quickly that, wow, I'm really humbled because I am not a genius. It was all the market. It was all, how things were working back then. Appraisers were easy. Finding deals was easy. It was
Financing
crazy.
was
So,
easy,
right.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, then after losing everything and taking out money on my credit cards, making sure my investors got paid back their money and things like that,
Yep.
I took the hit. That was a hard thing to deal with. I'm telling my wife, put your hand on my chest. I need to think, so, and,
Come call me, because I tell you that we are, my heart rate is sky high, my stress is sky high, and it was for all of us who were active investors at
right.
that time. We just got handed our backside a lot on several
Yeah,
projects.
and you realize after coming out of that the strength that you gain from that is insurmountable to anything that you can ever, get through, other than maybe a health issue or something like that, of
Right.
course, which makes you much stronger.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you get back up? Can you do the right thing when there's adversity? And can you keep pushing and keep pushing? And I found that as soon as you change that mindset from hold my chest, to my wife, oh my God, how am I going to get out of
I'm
this?
gonna
To,
die, right?
yeah, to focus on the solution. It's going to be grinding out hard. But if you get through that, you are 10 times stronger and you persevere. And, there's not just been one instance of taking punches in the stomach or the face, so you learn over time. When I first got into lending, I took some properties back and I was very nice to somebody when I shouldn't have been. He was lying to me in my face for 2 years or for a year and a half, and it cost me $300,000 just learning that hard lesson like that.
Yes,
But
I understand. I understand so well.
yeah, you're like, I've done all of this,
Well, I've done more than I would like to even necessarily, more than I care to be honest about, but I need to be honest about it. So yes, I have lost that type of number because of my loyalty to somebody and my unwillingness to kick patootie. I'm sorry, my daughter's 10, so we still say kick patootie in our household, but my unwillingness to just draw the bottom line and say, no,
Right.
not on my dime. I need to feed my own family.
You realize very quickly that your desire to please people, make people happy, keep relationships strong, needs to be secondary to mitigate risk for me as well as you. Make sure everybody's making money and everything's clear,
Right.
and you have set guidelines especially with the people you have good relationships with, because that's where the friend, let me help you out a little bit more and a little bit more gets into, I just lost money, instead of, I should have went and said, no, right now I'm protecting myself. This is what I'm doing, and you learn real quick through those types of struggles. Of course, you get reminded about it every now and then. It's like you forget about what happened and you're going, okay, well, wait, I was just nice again. I shouldn't have done that, so. But yeah, you learn.
Sitting here going, oh, shoot. I'm going through so many different experiences in my own life. My previous business partner and helping him out, and then my next business partner and helping her out. And both of those times didn't work.
Right.
I was too nice. I was too loyal. I didn't hold them accountable to the same standards I hold other people accountable to. And I, because I'm financially securing the background behind all of those, I took the financial hit in both of those situations. I'm the one who lost the capital. So yeah, no, this show isn't about me, it's about you, but you're like so reminding me of my own real estate career. I just, So keep talking. So yes, the loyalty in us causes us to be kind when we should be focusing on the bottom line and the balance of the relationship, right? The equal accountability in the relationship.
Right. And you realize this with all of your relationships, from your employees to subcontractors to everybody. Being clear with them up front and telling them expectations and holding them to those expectations is really key for your success long term, because you can't actively manage an investment efficiently unless all of your team is functioning efficiently as well. One team member steps out or messes up or delays, or, you know, we've all seen the contractor go way over budget and, you know, lie about their costs and, you know, do those types of things. And after flipping over 700 houses, you realize very quickly how every way there is to lose money on a house, you know? So you're like, how do I mitigate that and have it never happen again? And that's really what real estate is. You know, you're testing things, you're trying to learn from your mentors, you're trying to learn how to not make those mistakes as best you can. And so I would hugely recommend mentors and people like that that can stop you from making those types of mistakes. That's one thing I wish I would have done in the very beginning, is just latched on to somebody that knew what the hell they were doing, because I didn't in the beginning, you know, and I thought I did, but you really don't know what you don't know until you're really losing money or make a mistake to cause that knowledge to occur, right? So
yeah, I've been, you know, investing in real estate for 30 years. I flipped at 2 different points in my real estate career, and I just made a mistake. I made a newbie mistake. I had 2 different surveyors survey the same property. So I now had 2 surveys that I now had to make a fence and a pool align with, and they're both going to be filed with LA County.
I
was like, yeah, you don't understand. We've already dug the pool. This is a problem.
Oh, that's a tough one. I just dealt with a situation where we foreclosed on a property and the attorney didn't give proper notice. And so we're having to re-foreclose on the property and get title insurance involved and things like that, because they reinsured over it after the foreclosure occurred and things like that. And so, and it's literally like less than $10,000 worth of damage and a couple of months of interest to get all that done. And the title company is trying to deny the claim and do these type. I'm like, it's less than $10,000. Are you serious? They just,
this is what insurance is for.
Right. But you know, you learn these little things and these little lessons, and you know, after a while, the little $5,000, $10,000 hits, you let it roll off of you a little bit more, even though it really sucks. Don't get me wrong. Anytime you lose money, it's not good. But at the same time, you're like, okay, what's the solution? How do you solve it? How do I never make it sure it never happens again? You know? So, and that's really the whole goal, is learning through that real estate investing. And then, you know, I was telling you earlier that I think after flipping as many houses as I have, I wish would have never sold any of them, because I would have been retired at this point, because it's all about cash flow at the end of the day.
Yes, but I have a challenge for that point of view. If you had kept every one of them, could you have bought so many? 700. Let's get clear. You have flipped 700 homes. Could you have actually purchased and kept 700 homes, or would you have slowed down? Now, you used other people's money. So maybe you could look me in the eyeball. Look me in the eyes and say, sorry, I'm trying to be funny. Yes, Christina, I could have kept all 700 because the way they were financed.
I didn't have the knowledge base then to know that I could have done it. And I didn't have the relationships at that time to know that I could have done it, or the experience level necessarily for that as well. Because what it takes to do that is the ability to understand the legal structures for syndication and those types of strategies, the ability to raise capital, which you only really get from experience and knowledge on how to protect people in the first place, right? And so, you can't look at it as your own capital. So I deal with a lot of wholesalers that have that same mindset. Oh, I got to wholesale so that I can have enough money to then buy and hold and do that strategy. What if you were able to go through and say, okay, I got this wholesale deal. Let me partner with somebody that wants to buy and hold. I got built-in equity right here with this wholesale transaction. Someone that wants to buy and hold, let them get the financing in place and have title and all that stuff. And you get a percentage of the cash flow and the profits and the ownership of that deal. It's absolutely feasible to do those types of strategies if you understand the right structures and how to mitigate risk. And you can deal with the operational performance of that investment so that that investor doesn't have to, right? Because most of those investors that have the wherewithal to put the down payment down, that have, you know, the financing wherewithal and things like that, they have jobs. A lot of them just don't want to do the work. And so if you learn how to do the work, you understand the structures and you understand how to mitigate their risk and how they're protected and all the benefits and how you make money in those deals, you could do it. It's just a matter of, like I said, the knowledge base at the time, the resources at the time. So developing those things are key to long-term financial stability and cash flow, you know? So.
Okay, put a little flesh and blood on this. So I know somebody who came and presented at my FIBI meeting, and they put up, I was the only person I've ever seen who put up their portfolio on the screen, their percentage of ownership and the value of each asset they had a percentage of ownership in. Almost every asset they had a partial ownership in, 17%, 12%, 10%. Some of them later were like 50%. But he started with owning 10% of a deal or 12% of a deal because he managed the deal and he worked it forward for his financiers. And that's the part of the deal he got. He's a very happy, nicely wealthy man after about 20, 25 years of doing this with other people's money. And he started with the concept that he wasn't going to wholesale, that he was going to work the deal.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to put that flesh and blood on there. Like,
I think that's key. And it's hard to see that when you just get
very
started.
hard to see that.
You look for that. Everybody's
You look
like,
for the
I'm going to
quick
make
payday.
30 grand on a wholesale and
Yeah.
I'm going to do 3 a year. And you're like, you know, that defeats the purpose of investing in real estate in the long run. That's a job, you know, so that's a business and it's active, right? So, and wholesaling is one of the hardest things you can do. One of the hardest types of strategies to implement.
So you've done the trajectory. That's part of why I'm focusing on this in interview, is because I know you've done the trajectory. You've started with flipping 700 properties, using other people's money to do it, learning how to capital raise, learning how to control teams, learning how to flip out of state, learning how to vet contractors, what the turnaround needs to be. You've had some difficulties with some of your employees. Like, you've gone all the way from I'm a flipper to I'm a flipper and a hard money lender, and I generate money, right? I generate loans, which I sell, right? To expanding just from flipping to managing the money side, both directions, right? To now a syndicator, right? And in multi-units. So you've done a whole growth here. Walk through just a little bit, like, how'd you manage to do that? And what is it that showed up for you? Like, educate us here on what that path looks like.
Some of that is not saying no to deals when they come at me, when I'm like, you know, I shouldn't have taken this one down. It's way too much work and I do it anyways and, you know, make the money on it. And it just is a lot of headache.
So not saying no to deals. There's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, at the end of the day, you know, you realize, hey, look, I got all these single family homes and I'm doing all the work myself, and it's a lot of work. Not me, not doing the construction because I got CPA hands over here, but you know,
no, but you're running teams. You're running
I'm
teams,
running teams,
and you're raising capital. Like, you're the one
so
who's ultimately online. It's your buck who is ultimately the one that the people are trusting. So you're the head of the whole team. I apologize. Go ahead.
Right. No, exactly right. And, you know, I'm managing construction guys and I have, you know, rehab managers that are managing the construction guys that I'm managing the rehab manager. I'm raising the capital. I'm making sure the deal's on point and being asset manager for those flips. So, and then you realize, okay, wait a minute, if I'm getting more and more deals, how do I get my time back? And you want to put other people in place that can manage that so that flip structure is going on its own without me involved for the most part, other than high level management and reporting, you know, that go with that structure. And you realize I started to kind of get into the lending piece when, you know, I had networked with all these investors, and investors have invested with me and lent me money for years. And so I had more money than I had deals at the time. And so I started saying, well, okay, someone needs funding for a deal. They come to me and I'm looking at the deal and seeing the structure going, wow, I'm at 65% loan to value. I can make a spread on this money, sometimes 4 to 6% spreads on that money, which is really nice. And, you know, you look at those and then you start getting known as the person that has capital. And then deals start coming to you. Like more deals than you can even deal with or analyze yourself. And you have to outsource the underwriting. You have to go through and do that if you're going to actually stay up with the level of activity. Then you have to go through wait a minute, do I have enough capital for all this? Let me go raise some more money and syndicate and put investors privately into a syndication where then I can lend that, have more control over it, have a less administrative burden and that type of stuff. And you just kind of graduate into a bigger level associated with your capital sources, you're flipping and now lending. And then we started doing some multifamilies as they came up, and we started analyzing them. And, we did, some smaller buildings first, 4 units, 6 units, 9 units, 16 units. And then we started doing 30 units, and we started doing some major construction projects. And we realized by doing those are not, 20, 30,000, $15,000 flips in the Midwest that, and profits. Those are $250,000, $500,000 chunks that we're making in profit if we go flip those.
Mhm.
And so we started
But you're also
learning.
putting 250 in.
Right. Or bringing more private capital investors in and things
No,
like that.
I meant that
or-
as private capital, but you're putting 250 in of private capital to
Yes.
fix it, to get 250 out.
Right. We would go get a construction loan from a bank, and then the bank would say, hey, you got to go put $350,000 in before we put our money in on the construction side.
Mhm.
And so you do construction draws and learn that entire process. And it's probably one of the best processes you can ever go through, is dealing with a commercial lender's construction draws on these things. Teaches you exactly how the banks think at all times. They're going, no, you're not getting a dime until I get every receipt, every documentation, and the inspectors out at the property telling me what your percentage of completion
It
is.
doesn't matter if you've done the deposit. It doesn't matter if you've shown me the invoice. It doesn't matter if the doors are not physically on site, you ain't getting anything for it. And if they're not installed, by the way, you don't get that piece either.
Right.
If you, and I've learned to not ask, like I've learned to not ask for, like, if the doors are on site, I've learned to go, yes, screw it. I'm going to wait until it's installed and then get the whole chunk. Right. But I now need to push when I'm running my contractor, I'm now running my contractor through the eyes of my draw schedule. I'm not running my contractor through the eyes of, oh, gee, it'd be nice, or I want to do this at this time, or, I'm actually readjusting my contractor's plans based on, but I can't, you want to order the kitchen cabinets and you want me to put the deposit 4 months before we actually, so we know who our kitchen cabinet guy is, and he's paid, he's on the job, he's committed. I'm like, no, I have to hold that deposit for 4 months before I can get my draw for it. So no, we're not going to do it that way. I'm not going to pre-order several months in advance. That's the contractor I was working with on one of my projects. I'm like, no, dude, you understand. I have so much money in these chunks to move forward based upon my draw schedule. Right? I mean, that's what you're saying, right? How does the bank think?
Training your contractor is one of the hardest parts of that, because a lot of these contractors aren't used to that. They're like, hey, homeowner, cut me a check. Okay, great. I had a contractor in a multifamily building where I gave him the first $30,000 draw for the documentation for everything, for, the materials that we had to go buy, as well as the first piece of labor that they were putting in already for the demo. And then he hit me up and said, hey, I'm looking at bidding on these big commercial projects over here, and they want me to get audited financial statements. And I was like, okay, well, this is what you need to do. Like, how do you know where your financials are now? You need to go put yourself in the right financial position and show them how you your financials and everything. And he said, well, if I have money in the bank, then I'm doing okay. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not paying you anymore. I'm paying your subs directly. And so I made sure every time I paid his subs, I got lien waivers every time. And you learn through other people being bad financially what you have to do to protect yourself, right? So it's an interesting thing to go through that process and learn that. But back to what I was saying is, it really comes up to, realizing, hey, what's the highest and best use of my time? Can I do a couple of apartment buildings a year like this? And can I learn the strategies? And now I can teach on multifamily and understand that aspect, because I understand the numbers involved behind it. Being the accounting piece helps a ton, of course, with real estate and the numbers. But, at the end of the day, it comes down to, okay, great. Now I can go buy and hold multifamilies. And my mindset kind of shifted from all this activity and doing all this work to, now I do a lot of buy and hold joint ventures on the multifamily side through syndication, through other outside syndication investments that I invest passively in. And then at the same time, I do joint ventures on single family homes where these flippers bring me money or bring me deals. And I'm like, hey, I'll joint venture with you. I'll put up all the money and I'll give you a percentage of the profits on the deal after we BRRRR method the thing and pull out all the capital out. BRRRR method is basically you're buying, renovating, tenanting, and refinancing and pulling all your money out.
Actually, let you say it clearly. Say the whole thing clearly so people can learn from it. So BRRRR method officially is.
Yeah, you're buying, renovating, and refinancing that property so that you can get all your cash out and hold it for that cash flow afterwards. So that's basically what you're doing, right?
Buy, refurbish, rent,
There you go.
refinance.
There you go. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no, it's
missed
okay.
the, I
I
missed
just
the
want to get
rent
all the
part.
steps in there so that people understand how can you refinance it? You don't want to refinance it while you're preparing to sell it. You refinance it because it's now got a renter in place.
Mhm.
And now they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you money because you have a performing property. And then
Right.
that's a much better refinancing than the hard money we get to do the flipping.
Right. And right now there's 30-year fixed rate financing out there for single family homes, which didn't really exist previously other than Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loans, which you're limited to 10 to,
Right.
so now you can do unlimited of these things and in LLCs. And so it makes a lot of sense. So there's a ton of people on the ground in all these cash flow markets that have property. They have a ton of resources to find deals, great wholesalers, great, on the ground people, but they don't have the money even for the difference between the hard money loans and what they would have to put up on a hard money loan. And so I'm coming in saying, I'll put up all the money. I'm going to take title so that I don't have to foreclose on you for if I'm putting up all the money, and I'll finance it and then I'll split it with you. I'll control the whole deal. And you're basically my contractor on the ground and helping me get it renovated and tenanted with a management company. And then you collect it passively. You don't have to do anything anymore, so
And you're finding that's working because the level of controls that you have. Right. Because that doesn't always work for me. It's worked sometimes and other times it doesn't, based upon my contractor and the diligence of the person I'm JVing with.
I always start with that person because I've in the past, of course, done multiple with somebody that ran out of money and screwed up and cost me a little bit, wasn't a ton, but you learn.
Right.
But yeah, and it really comes down to interviewing that person to understand their sophistication and the rehab and the contractor, because your biggest risk in a situation like that is the construction. And they're going to go over budget. So you budget just in case, an extra 10, 15% just to be on the safe side. But even then there could be a foundation issue. So you want to get inspections done, as well. Even part of that process, even if your purchase isn't contingent on the inspection, get one done anyways, get a foundation inspection done. There's no reason not to for a couple $100,
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I always like getting inspection too, because for that same reason, it's like, it's my punch list, whether I'm buying it for a rental or whether I'm buying it for rehab. It's like, it gives me a full idea of the spectrum of what I'm buying and what my to-do list is. Right. And if I don't get it inspected clearly, then I might miss something. Like I didn't get one thing inspected. I missed that it had, they had knob and tube in the ceiling, but what's the R wire? What's the right wire? That I don't remember
You're talking about the ground wire?
No, they literally connected today's wiring, which is R something grade wiring, to knob and tube in the ceiling and dropped it down the walls. So when you open the outlet, it's today's code. But when you open the ceiling, it was knob and tube that was attached to the panel.
I had a contractor put a PVC pipe on a gas line. I was like, you're fired. You're going to blow up the house. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, how did you do that? So, but yeah, it just hurts your head sometimes. You're like, really, so.
Okay. So let me summarize what you've just gone through, what you've described to us, because I want people to understand. To me, you're almost the ideal, like you are the poster child, right? In my mind, for growing from I'm doing flips because I need a job. I've just quit my job. I need a job. I need money to come in. I'm going to do flips, right? To I'm now doing multiple flips. To I'm now maximizing how I can use my flips by controlling the money that goes into it, right? Controlling them, getting the selling the turnkey to investors, and even maybe sometimes selling the note on that so that I can keep the note. Like you were controlling the financing. I'm not describing it well enough, but you were getting hard money going in, investors going in with you. You were doing the flip. You were selling it to investors, right? Turnkey. And then sometimes I believe you were also keeping the note. Weren't you helping your investors actually have a note on there that maybe you or one of your investors was holding?
Our strategy, we would buy it, renovate it, and tenant it. And then we would sell it turnkey to another investor, which all of our houses, we were selling a lot of properties to Japanese investors live in Japan. They would never see it. And so we would get full side-by-side pictures of every item in the inspection report showing it's done, with a complete disclosure of an outline of all the major systems in the house. And anybody listening, that's what you should be doing on your rehabs consistently, or any of your buy and holds. Get the disclosure, because you need to know what your CapEx is going to be down the line with your long-term systems. And so you got to put money aside for that out of your cash flow every single time. And so we would start off with the turnkey system, and that's how we started flipping. And I love that system, because after it's rented, you're not bleeding anymore. You're not, sitting there waiting for an open market sale to a homeowner and things like that. And I like the Midwest markets because there's low volatility and things like that. And so
and positive rent to mortgage, right? So you're capable of covering the mortgage. As soon as you finish the rehab, you rent it out. Now you are covering your holding costs while you're selling it to an investor.
And even with a high interest private investor, you're still break even on the cash flow. So you're not bleeding on that. And so what we started doing, this was born out of the last crash that occurred, where what we started doing is we had a couple properties we couldn't move anymore. And I took a weekend class from a lady named Dawn Rickabaugh. You may know her. So
I know Dawn Rickabaugh. Yeah.
And I took a couple of other classes as well from some of the gurus, and they were awesome at what they do. And I learned how the seller finance strategy worked and how the paperwork worked and all that. And that was my introduction into lending. And so now we've seller financed hundreds of houses.
That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah. We would seller finance them to people's IRAs, give them a 15-year loan, fully amortized at like 6.5% to 7% interest. And then our profits are built into that note. And so when we seller finance that note, we could always go through and sell a percentage off to an investor if we wanted to, and collateralize that note, or sell it off that paper to banks and insurance companies and things like that. So it's just like selling a house. You just have a different buyer involved. And now I don't have to deal with appraisal headaches when I'm like the top comp on the market. I can squeeze a couple extra pennies out, like with a $3,000 loan fee on the back end for the seller financing. And the person that's buying in their IRA gets a 15-year loan inside their 401k or their IRA, fully amortized, to where when they retire, they have a free and clear house in their IRA. So I had people buying, 5, 10 of them inside their IRA going, great, when I retire, I'm gonna have 10 grand a month.
Yeah. It's like, it's buying an annuity. It's like, it's straightforward. I know what I'm buying, and it's going to pay me out this in 15 years or better, because that's its current rent right now. It's probably going to be more in 15 years. And, and you're supplying the paper, the seller financing, so that they can have the paper inside their IRA without having to go through all the difficulties of finding a bank that's willing to lend inside of an IRA, because there are many banks who will not do that.
Right.
It's ideal.
And it's the same thing with smaller multifamilies too. A lot of the bigger lenders don't want to touch the stuff under $1 million that are national lenders. And a lot of the local lenders that are the banks and things like that don't really want to do business with out-of-state people if you don't live in that market, because they will if you have the right financials and you don't need the money. Then they'll be fine lending you money, but they don't want to go after you for a judgment in an out-of-state market. And so there's a big gap right there from the under $1 million loan type stuff for out-of-state people. And so I started seller financing that stuff, and it was massively lucrative, especially because when you learn the seller financing side, now you can hit up people for their 1031 exchange and structure their financing, what they need to hit for their 1031 exchanges and those types of strategies, which is huge. And then you start to see the math on the profits on the seller financing stuff. And so, I might be financing at 7%, but my rate of return is in the high teens because my profit's built in. And then I started learning the math on the hard money lending, right? If I'm going to go through and lend at 12% and a point every 6 months, and it lasts a year, that's a 14% interest rate. And I did a $500,000 loan inside my 401k, where my 401k then sold 90% of that loan to another investor. So 450,000 of that loan at 8%. And so on the 50 grand my 401k had left in the deal, I was making a 68% return. I'm like, whoa, that's some math
using the notes.
So
that's what I mean. You see what I mean? Like, you started as a flipper and you worked your way through to being an expert. using the whole, not leaving flipping, but using the whole line of what you were already doing to be an expert in each step along the way. I don't know if that's horizontal or vertical integration, but there is a business name for it. And you used every step along the way to maximize your involvement, to maximize your control, to minimize your risk, and to maximize your return for yourself and your investors. And then you took that model and now you've syndicated it. So now you're not having to get every investor applied to a property individually. You now have a pool of money that's being attached to a model that you have already worked through. That's what I mean by you being the poster child. Like, people ask me, well, how do I become a syndicator? And I'm like, well, become an expert in the market first. Right. How you get people to hand you money that doesn't have any strings attached to it other than you signing an agreement, right? Which is effectively stocks. Right? How do you get that is because your reputation and your level of experience in the field has caused people to go, I trust him. He's been doing it for 15 years. He's proven to me he can do it. It's huge. It's really a matter of trust.
I think it's important to let everybody know you have no business at all raising money from anybody that's not a professional lender that knows what they're doing, period, without knowing what you're doing and how to mitigate the risk and structure things so your investors are protected. If you can't do that and you can't explain to your investors exactly every single paper involved that protects them, every single piece of due diligence that you're doing to protect them, and exactly how that deal is structured and where your risks lie, you should not be taking money from those people. And this happens. So many people lose money all the time because they invest with people that don't have that right level of knowledge yet, that are starting out. And don't get me wrong, I understand there's a big need. You got to get the money in there. Go to the professionals involved. Go find a mentor that can help you with those types of structures and understanding before you try to do that, because that's the last thing you want to do be new, mistakenly lose someone's money, and then you lost your reputation, you lost, that trust of that person and things like that, So,
and I think there's a growing to that, right? So to add to that, like, the reason why you can be a syndicator where you're just taking people's money is because of your level of expertise. Well, if you're brand new and you've got somebody who's a good friend of yours, maybe you guys do it together as a joint venture and you guys are both putting your money in the deal and you're both at risk and you both understand what you're doing. Do a couple of those. Then you can start saying, hey, you know what? I'm ready for other people's money, but only individually applied to a deal. And if all shit breaks apart, then they're able to give them a house, right? You're able to say, I've mitigated their risk. I can give them something if it dies, right? And maybe I have my own capacity to cover some of these shortfalls. So you're not investing in houses that are so big, right, that you can't fix the problem. And it's a developing. And I think to me, that's why I say you're the poster child, right? You're the poster child in my mind because you've gone from the beginning all the way to where people want to end up. I know people want to end up being a syndicator. I don't know that I do, but you want to end up being a syndicator, right? And the other people I've talked to, and you've learned all the lessons along the way. So let's change the topic a little bit. Speaking of learning lessons along the way, right? Let's move to the other part that I always like to get to, which is financial freedom.
Okay.
Right? What's the worst deal that you've done? Let's start with the worst deal that you've done. What's the worst deal that you've done that made you show up, stand up and grow up? So tell us about the deal and tell us how it grew you up, because real estate will grow you up. And that's what ultimately I think makes us experts in the field. If somebody can't tell me how real estate, handed them their backside in something and how they solved it, I kind of don't want to invest with them because I don't know who they are. Real estate hasn't asked them, who are you going to be in the worst of it?
Right. And I think, in the very beginning, I feel like I was lucky to take the hit in the beginning before I had a lot of wealth in the first place, and when the market was crashing, we were selling properties so quickly. We were buying, rehabbing and flipping literally in like a couple of months each time. It was so quick. It was crazy. And so we went and we got an office at the World Trade Center in Long Beach on like the 23rd floor for $5,000 a month. We were like, I had two stepbrothers that were working with me full time. And, you know, I'm working really, really hard and they're working hard. And, you know, I'm thinking if I do the accounting, then we'll be okay as a company, you know, so because I'm a CPA and that's my mindset. Right. And they're like helping flip and everything. And we bought 35 houses and all at the same time. We're cash poor. And we're like, great, but we're going to sell them in 2 months. It doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. We have enough for a couple of months. We're fine, you know? And we bought them, renovated, tenanted them, and then had them resold to investors that were on financing with no money down, that were in the process of refinancing. And we had told those investors on seller financing, you don't have to pay us an interest rate in the meantime because you're going to go through and refinance right away. Right. Then the lending market stopped completely, and we're going, oh crap! Like we don't have any cash, and none of these are closing. The thing we did have is all three of us had like 790 plus credit scores, you know, and it was during the time that all the credit bureaus were just giving out credit. I had like 290 grand worth of empty credit card lines, and we all took out the money on our credit cards, paid our investors, and basically went down with the ship and took the hit. And we tried to make it float, and it didn't work because we were all in debt like crazy and had no income coming in. But we ended up taking the hit for our investors so that they didn't have to. But and we realized afterwards that we were doing it mostly out of necessity. Like we can't let these people that we know lose their money, and not realizing what that would do for us afterwards was it built the trust, because they didn't know the market was crashing at the time that was happening. They didn't know any of that stuff. They knew it 6 months later, you know, when they realized, oh, all this, you know, stuff is hitting the fan. And the appraisals dropped drastically because there's no banks funding for an 8-month or 6-month period of time, you know, of anything of a, you know, and so doing that allowed these investors to invest with us, and we started fixing and flipping again and doing all that once the market kind of bottomed out and scraped by, you know, that whole time, and pushed until we started having enough capital ourselves to be able to just borrow the money and not, you know, partner with people, not do those types of things. And then we just started going. We started moving forward. And then I had, you know, a friend of mine, it was gross negligence versus purposeful theft, but it cost me $500,000 at least, where he was running our management company and there was no money left, no money in the security deposits account, things like that, where I was like, what? And I just covered all of it and moved all the management to a new manager and covered all of it for my investors. And, you know, we took $100,000 of security deposit hit ourselves, you know, and I talked to you at the time about it, going, Christina, look at my situation.
Help me figure out a plan. What do I do?
You know, and that's
the first thing out of your mouth was, I got to protect my investors. How do I protect my investors?
No matter what, I wasn't going to let them lose money. Right. And I, you know, and again, telling my wife, put your hand on my chest, I can't breathe, you know,
help me breathe. I know I'm supposed to be solution oriented, but right now I just need to breathe. I'll come up with solutions tomorrow morning.
Right.
I mean, I'm serious. Like, sometimes it feels like that for me. I'm like, no, I'm done. I know positive solutions are the way to get there. I understand that's going to be the thing that's going to save my ass and everybody else's. And I understand that. But tonight, I can't do it.
Right.
Tomorrow morning, I can recommit to that. But right now, I just need to have a meal.
I need a beer.
I need to sleep. I don't drink, so I don't even get a beer. I mean, come on, feel sorry for me over here. Right. I just need to have a good meal, and I just need to go to sleep, maybe have a bath, and in the morning go, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's figure this fricker out.
And you realize after these hits. So, you know, after I took that hit from that situation, I was able to get out of it by scraping and finding solutions to those situations. Right.
And you did. You refinanced structuring on a whole bunch of deals.
The biggest aha moment though came when I was going to take about a $50,000 hit on an apartment building sale. And I was like, no, I'm not going to take that hit. What do I do to make that money back? What exact thing right now can I do to make that back? And I found another deal that we literally made 50 grand. It was actually 70 grand back on a resale of another building that we were just basically acting as agents with our brokerage in Tennessee, and realized, and at that moment, I was like, wow, your ability to overcome these things and these hits that you're going to have, which will happen no matter what, it's going to happen, is dependent on your ability to immediately stop the emotion, say, no emotion, how do I solve this? What are the exact things what are the action items I can take right now to get through this and push and push and push through it, And then, after all this stress, I realize I just want cash flow. It's time to get the cash flow.
Okay, so let's go to financial freedom. Okay, so financial freedom. So you have been active in the field, right? We've gone through the whole progress of how you got here. Super busy dude, right? Studly, getting it done, right? Mr. Solution. But now your desire for financial freedom and what your financial freedom means to you has changed.
Absolutely.
What does it mean to you now? Financial freedom used to be, I'm going to bring home a big paycheck. Now it's,
I want to spend time with my kids and work from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. a couple days a week, maybe 4 or 3 days a week, and then read and educate myself and, help other people, and that's really, I think the goal at the end of the day is having the time freedom. It's not like I won't ever do another deal or I won't do that type of strategy when I find it interesting. It's a matter of having the freedom to not have to flip a bunch of deals, which we have a big buy and hold portfolio as well right now, and a lot of cash flow from our lending. But even the fix and flip lending, that's an active business. It's not, it's short term. It's not long term. And so, that strategy, once my mindset changed, it was basically when I had my kids, when I realized, wow, this is something more important than just making money and hustling all day, so, and, don't get me wrong, I love my wife, but, it's not the same as a kid, where they're like, let me change my whole focus, so.
No, they do that to you. You're talking about you're talking about your daughter, right? I mean, you're talking about your son, which is great. And you're talking about your daughter, and that you got a daughter. I mean, there's something, my why is my kids. So, I'm an easy sell on this, right? So I'm obvious, but there is something about when they show up and there's this human being that you are not only responsible for, but you love in a way like you didn't know you could, for me, but, you just love them, and you don't, for me, I want to be there and I don't want to mess it up.
I called my mom maybe 3 months after my son was born, and I was like, Mom, I can't believe parents love their kids this much. I'm sorry for being such an a-hole in high school. And she was like, it's what every mother wants to hear. That's perfect.
Thank you.
So
That's perfect. Okay. It's all forgiven. All those high school
Right.
years of you being such a pain are forgiven.
But at the same time, really what your kids do for you is they make you want to be better so you can teach them more. And what that means to me on the real estate front is stop being the self-employed, be the business owner, learn how to buy your time back and step back from a piece of the business and let go, and focus on cash flow strategies a lot more instead of going through and being active all the time. Find every way you can to get your time back so that you can go teach them more and spend more time with them and become a better person. Because the more you learn, you're like, in my head, I'm going, well, I'm a super active flipper. I'm working all the time. I'm lending all the time. Do I want this for my kids? Do I want my kid to learn? I want them to learn a work ethic and things like that, but I don't want them to learn to work from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., 5 days, 6 days a week, and sometimes 7, to get through stuff. And sometimes you got to work that hard to make sure you don't lose your butt. But at the same time, it's, what do I want to teach them? Do I want to teach them? No, build the building blocks of financial freedom through cash flow. All the other stuff is just running a business, so makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. And for me, I'm going to add on to that because for some reason, I've been super chatty during your interview, but for me, I'm going to add on to that.
Awesome.
Like one of the things, my mom was a single mom from the time I was 2 till the time I was 9. Right. And I wore my sister's hand-me-down clothes and blah, blah, blah. My mom was a single mom trying to earn enough money, running her own company. And she worked from before we got up until after we went to bed. My mom was pretty much working. Right. And one of the things that I took away from it was, I didn't want my kid to ever think that they were so unimportant, they got no time with me.
Right.
I wanted them to understand that they were an important enough human being that they got my focus, that I could stop and I could just say, hi, so what do you need? and I can give that to you.
Right. I think my mental illness with that, type of history, you always look at yourself and say, why am I the way I am? And
Yeah.
how do I make those changes? Because some of this stuff is subconscious. And, I lost my dad to skin cancer when I was 26 and working at a CPA firm. He waited till April 17th to pass so I could finish tax season and get up there and see him for the last time. And a lot of people do that. They wait, to say their goodbyes. And he passed away when I was in the living room with him, and he was a CPA. And I kind of, it's funny. I still remember him saying, "Don't be a CPA. You'll never get spring break ever again." And but
he was
but
trying
I
to
think,
give you some sound advice there. It's a good thing you finally listened.
Yeah, I know. So, and I was going to Santa Barbara going, I don't want to leave this school. I'm just going to become a CPA. They don't have architecture school here, so I'm just going to become an accountant.
Okay.
That was my mindset.
That was your mindset. Okay.
There's too many girls at Santa Barbara to want to leave.
It's a lovely college. It's a really great college.
It really is.
It's a great town. It's a great college. It's a wonderful environment. Yeah.
So really, when my dad was passing, I told him, I'll take care of my sister. I'll take care of my family. I'll make sure that everybody is taken care of. And so that's where my mental instability comes from, no, I got to work hard. I got to keep focusing and push and push and push. And you kind of look back at yourself and say, you know what, that's not the right thing. That's not, maybe it's good for a period of time. It's good to build that for yourself and learn what that really means to, make a 40-hour week, a part-time job sometimes, but at the same time, that's not what's important in life. And your time and enjoying life is the most important piece. And if you think in a different way where you can do all of that without having to work as hard as you think you do, it's really powerful when you can do that without it.
And you can choose it.
Right.
On that note, Matthew, so how do people get a hold of you? How do they give you money so that you can invest them into this system that you've created? How do they find out about your houses or buy turnkey houses from you? How do they get notes from you? How do they, apply to you and say, hey, I need a note on my flip?
Yeah. So when I'm working with investors, I typically do an interview with them to make sure that I understand what their goals are and what they're trying to accomplish, whether they're working with me in, a number of different ways, whether it's, buying investment property and things like that, that's turnkey or ready to go, or working on a 1031 exchange, or, investing in a fund. And I want to have a relationship with them a little bit more long-term for that type of an investment. Or if it's, just finding ways of me helping them and then bringing me resources. They can find me at invest@ocgproperties.com or go to ocgproperties.com and reach out there and contact us. But, we help people in every way possible associated with real estate. And it really comes down to these cash flow strategies on creating financial freedom, which you read in my mission statement in the beginning.
I did. So invest at ocgproperties.com. Thank you, Matthew Owens with OCG Properties. And thank you, my listener, for listening to the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. Tune in next week for our next interview.